Now we're going to go way, way back and we're going to look at a fiddly little number called Dream On. The intro goes like this. Okay, we've got a series of kind of F minor chords here. It's kind of easier to play than it looks, I guess. We start, if you can imagine an F minor in this position. That's kind of the home chord, if you like. The song is in F minor. If you want to play this kind of F minor, my first finger is on the D3. My third finger is on the G5. My little finger is on the B6. And there's the minor third at the top there on the 4th fret on the E string. Our first chord is an F minor, but I'm kind of just concentrating on the top 3 strings. So I'm going, starting with an upstroke and going, and it's upstroke and a downstroke. So I'm just glancing those top 2 strings on the upstroke, and then it's a downstroke to hit this G5. That's the first chord, it's the F minor. You don't really have to hold this kind of root note, but it is kind of nice for that shape. The next chord we go to is still with this F in the bass. I'm still not playing that F bass, but this chord is kind of like it's almost like an F minor 9. And, or you could say it's almost like C minor over F, but it's more like an F minor 9. And it's, again, my first finger is on that, it's always going to be on that F note, the D3. My third finger is now on the G5. My second finger is on the B4. And this first finger is on the 3rd fret on the E string. So you get this kind of sound. So it's literally, it's a little movement. I've lifted off my little finger because the actual melody is coming down within the chord. It's kind of looking for that sort of sound going on. So that's the second chord. The third chord is this little jobby. So that's not too much of a bad change. You could just go take your second finger and put it on the 4th fret of the E string. That kind of makes it an F minor 6. So far we've got, then we get a sort of a bit of a killer chord here. This chord I would say would be something like an F2 add flat 13 or an F9 add flat 13 because it's still over the F bass. How I'm holding it is I've got my 4th finger on the G5, my first finger on the B2, which is kind of 2 notes next to each other, and this top G note, which is on the E3. It's a very kind of F9 flat 13, it's very played in that kind of way, but if you're kind of, it gives a lot of tension to the chord. So that's kind of the crux of the intro. They're the first 4 chords. Then we're back to our first chord, which is the F minor. Then we kind of put our little finger, if you can still hold the F minor chord, but put your little finger, bar those top 2 strings on the 6th fret. So it's only a tiny movement to go from there to there, and you've got that next chord. And then we have to leap to the next chord, which is here. So it's kind of, you've got the top string doing this. And my little finger, so I've shifted shapes now for that last chord. My first finger is holding the G5. My second finger is holding the B6. And my little finger is on that 8th fret on the E string. So I'll quickly run through those chords again. That's the first round of chords you hear. It does that again, and we have a slight variation on the way it comes out of it. It does this. This is the second part of the intro. So I've landed on this last chord we had. So you want the top part of the chord to go. That's where the movement is. It's going from the 8th fret to the 6th fret to the 4th fret. And if you put that with the two sort of F chords, the two notes in the F chord, which is on the G5 and the B6, you can see I have to shift my fingers to keep the chord going. Then we do a similar sort of movement, but we're just now concentrating on two notes, doing this. So we've kind of embellished that little movement. That shape, we're on the B and the E string, and the B is on the B8 and the 7, sorry, on the B9 and the 8 on the E. Down to the B8 and the E6, down to the B6 and the E4. So you get this sort of shape. And I'm kind of, rather than strumming it, I'm, just using the plectrum and my second finger just to get both notes at the same time. It sounds sweeter. And if you can, give it a little bit of a vibrato like it is on the track, like Joe's giving on the track. Then we have that kind of very distinctive guitar run. It does this. So we're going to start on the G string, and we're going to go on and off from the 6 to the 5. Then we have this little phrase. So I'm starting on the G from the 6 to the 5, down to the 8 on the D, and then back up 5, 6 on the G, and then 5, 6 on the E. Put it together. The run carries up like this. So once we've landed to, we go up to this is all on the B string. So I'm going on and off from the 8 to the 6 on the B, slide up to the 9 to the 8, slide up from the 9 to the 11. So I'm going to put that little phrase together. Then we get a kind of a descending, kind of falling down the stairs kind of little phrase. It's pull-offs and slides. It does this. So I'm starting, that first little, it's a hammer on and pull off from the 9 to the 11. Move that shape down 1 fret, and we're hammering on from the 8 to the 9. So if you put those two together, then we go down to the 6th fret, and we're hammering on from the 6 to the 8. Then we go down to the 4th fret, hammer on from the 4th to the 6th. Then we get a very kind of slick little movement here. We go hammering on from the 2 to the 4, and almost immediately slide down to the first fret. But as soon as you've kind of initiated that slide, you zoom up to that first fret on the octave, which is on the 13th fret. So if I put that run together at the correct speed, it sounds like this. I'm just going to play that one more time, very slowly for you. So there's quite a lot to that intro. It's worth spending some time on that just to get it right, because it's such a focal point of the song. Joe Perry kind of does it with a 3-3-5 live, and it's not as clean as it is on the track, but I'm trying to kind of keep it reined in and clean like the track is. That's the intro. Then we start with our verse, which has the very similar chords. It's a very similar chord section. It goes like this. The last time round, before we're going into the next section, it does a little just change. Rather than me sit there and play that chord sequence 5 times, it just let me show you the little change at the end of that kind of sequence. It does this. It's quite nice. So that extra little new bit we've got there starts on our F minor chord. Then we lift this off, this first finger. So now I'm holding that E3 with my first finger. And my little finger comes down to the 6 to the 5 on the B string. So if I put that movement together, it's almost like doing a C sus4 to a C. Starts with the F minor, lift off, and then come down. Then it does a similar sort of movement. Similar sort of movement, suggesting the same sort of thing. We're just, the second time, we're just simply lifting off our second finger. So I'm going to play the last round of the chord sequence we know and love at the end of that verse, and then I'm going to play this new little section that I've just showed you. It goes like this, so you can see it in context. Then we're building up from this on this G note, this kind of, it's almost like going from almost like a C chord to a C sharp diminished. It's kind of, that's the suggestion. But over the harpsichord that's happening, it's these two notes on the 6 and the 5 on the G. And build it up. If you got that far, you got the main intro and the verse part. We're going to now hit what is probably the chorus or the chunky part of the song. It goes like this. So for that section, we're on very safe territory there. Familiar chords. We've got an F minor, bar shape, playing at the 8th fret, barring all 5 strings from the A upwards. With my third finger, I'm on the 10th fret of the D, I'm on the 10th fret of the G, with my 4th finger, and the 9th fret on the B string. It's kind of an F minor chord. Going down to an E flat, regular bar shape, barring all 5 strings on the 6th fret, and with my third finger or your little finger, I'm using my little finger actually, on the 8th fret of the D, G, and B string. Then we go down to a D flat. Same shape, just move 2 frets down. Back up again. Then we're back to our intro, so clean the guitar up slightly, and then we get our intro again. Over that intro, you'll check out, you'll know what I mean, is this little guitar run, little bluesy kind of pentatonic guitar run, does this. Over that little chord sequence. We start on the 1st fret. It's kind of almost like an F minor pentatonic. We start on the 1st fret on the E, to the 3rd fret on the E, little finger on the 4th fret, 1st finger on the A, 3rd finger on the A, 1st finger on the D, 1st finger on the G, land on that D3. Then we're into our 2nd verse, which is just the straight intro chord sequence 4 times. It's just this sequence repeated. Coming out of that sequence, we go into the chunky kind of safe territory again, which is the F minor. At that point, we've got a new little chord sequence which you haven't heard before. It has a little lead guitar superimposed over the top of it, but the chord underneath it does this. So we start with our F minor again, down to the E flat. And this chord is probably new on you. It's like a D minor 7 flat 5. I'll tell you how I'm holding it. I've got my 1st finger. I'm barring actually the 5th fret from the A upwards. And with my 2nd finger, if you put it on the D6 and with my 2nd finger, put it on the D6 and my 3rd finger on the B6. Just play the middle 4 strings. And you get that movement of a D minor 7 flat 5. It's a really nice little movement. If you imagine the F minor to the E flat to the D minor 7 flat 5, down to the chord we had before, which was like a D flat bar chord. Then we got our on and off kind of diminished thing going on. So that's a new little sequence. That starts happening in the chorus now. So I'll play that sequence in context again from the beginning of that chorus. It goes like this. So the guitar that goes over that new little sequence does this. So we're bouncing off a C note. So the C note is on the G5, down to that F, which is a D3. Now I'm going to move to the D5. Now I'm going to move to the D6. Up to the D8. So you can see the movement. The movement you're after is... And you just have to bounce off this note, this C. And it's that guitar that does the kind of diminished little thing I was doing after the chords. Okay, we have a curious little midsection now. It's kind of an ascending chord sequence. On the track, there is just Joe Perry's guitar and the harpsichord behind it. But I'll show you what those actual chords are behind Joe Perry's guitar. But this is what Joe is playing on the track. So this is a kind of a cool little part. We're starting with our F minor chord, playing 3 notes really, and kind of picking how you fancy picking it. I'm kind of coming from the top to the bottom and kind of repeating the pattern. So again, with this note is moving up of the chord. So I'm holding these 3 notes, which is on the G5. My 3rd finger is on the 6 on the B, and the 4th on the E. That's your basic F minor triad. Then we're going to go up, put our little finger onto the 6th fret of the E, and take it up to the 8th fret of the E, and then slide it up to the 13th fret on the E. So I'll play that again for you. Then we get a kind of a random little, strange little part that does this. We're kind of holding 2 notes. I'm on the 13th fret on the B and the 10th fret of the G. So refer heavily to what he does on the track, but it's kind of something like this. So I kind of going in between those 2 notes and ending the phrase by. So I'm hitting that B13, and then going to the 12 on the G, and then bending up a semitone. And it kind of repeats that whole sequence really without that last little bit. It does this. Then we're back into those kind of chorus chords again. That's the midsection for what's actually happening guitar-wise. But there's a cool little sequence that I think is worth just showing you that the keyboard is playing. And I do believe that Brad Whitford plays this part, or something like this part, live. It's a kind of big part of the show that they do. But the sequence underneath that guitar part is this kind of thing happening. We're starting on an F minor in our usual position, which is on the 8th fret, barring all those strings, with the 10 on the D and 10 on the G and 9 on the B. Now what you want is this kind of, within the chord, this movement to happen. So this middle note is what's happening. And if you check out what the harpsichord is doing, it's kind of doing something like this. That's your first little sequence, and it's kind of a classic kind of jazz sequence really. It starts with an F minor, then it kind of goes to this, I think it's called an F minor major 7. So it's simply that note moved down within the chord. Then we go to an F minor 7, so that note is carrying on. And then I'm landing on this. And if I was to play the chord over it, it would be a kind of be an F minor 6, really. But that is the movement that's happening with the harpsichord. It carries on down here with the 2 chords doing a sort of a C and a, well, no, it's an E flat minor 6, does this. So that's kind of an E flat minor 6. My little finger is on the 6th fret of the A. My 2nd finger is on the 5th fret of the D. My 3rd finger is on the 5th fret of the G. And my 1st finger is on the 4th fret of the B, and you get this E minor 6 sound. Moving up to a C over E chord, really. There's the E chord, there's the C chord, and there's the E in the bass. So I'm barring now the D, the G, and the B string on the 5th fret, and there's the 3rd in the bass, which is on the 7th fret of the A. So if I just kind of strum those chords, you'll hear what the harpsichord is doing. And then we end with this little... So I'm kind of just strumming the F minor. And you want this little melody within the chord. Okay, our next section is our chorus section. It does this. Of course, we've got the bit that goes over that, which is this. At that point, we have a little kind of a series of little guitar runs. The first one at that point does this. So it's all very kind of pentatonic based. We're starting with a little C to C diminished kind of phrase. Then we've got this little phrase. So that's going on the G string, going from the 8th fret to the 9th fret, landing on the D10. And then we do a similar sort of thing, which is on the 10th, the G10, down to the 8, land again on that 10 on the D. So I put it together. Then there's sort of a little bluesy kind of phrase, which is this. We're bending up from the 10 to the 12 on the G. Then with the first finger, hit that 8 on the E, come down to the 11, down to the 8, all on the B string. Then we're kind of landing on the, which is the 8, little bluesy bend on the 8 on the G, and then that first note again on the 10 on the D. So if I put that phrase together, and it ends by this little phrase. It almost sounds like there's a mistake in the middle of his run, but that's what he's doing. He's kind of, the last little phrase is this. So I'm doing sort of 2 hits on that root note, on the D10, and then, so I'm bending up again from that 10 to the 12 on the G, coming up to the B8, down to the G8, and then which is the 11 to the 13 on the B. So if I put the whole kind of lick together, it sounds like this. At that point, we have a kind of a new section we haven't heard before. I'll show you what the chords do. They do this. So we're starting on a kind of series of sort of 5th power chords. We're starting on a B flat power chord, which is the 1st fret on the A and the 3rd fret on the D. Slide that up 2 frets to a C power chord. Slide it up 1 fret. Slide it up 2 frets. And we're going to land on that F. Which is where we got a kind of another little lead break, which does this. This really is a kind of a pentatonic bass kind of lick. We're at on the B string, and we're bending up from the 16 to the 16 to the 18. Then we come down, literally come down the scale. So I'm coming down, bending that, undoing that bend, landing on that 16 to the 13. Then we got 15, 13. 15, 13 on the D as well. And a little chromatic run on the A string, which is going from the 15, 14, 13. And then a little bluesy bend, bending up from the 16, landing on that 13th fret. So that lick again. Okay, now we have the meaty chords again, same as we did first time. Does this. So exactly the same as we did it the first time before the first guitar lick. I was landing on the F there, playing at the high position rather than the low position. Whichever suits you, but I was playing it on the 8th fret there, in the bar position. The lick that goes over it, or the little phrase that goes over that, does this. So again, it's a very F minor based sort of solo. Starting on the A string. So I'm on the 8th fret, down to the 6th fret, on the A string, and then to the E string on the 8th fret, then back up 6, 8 on the A string, and then a little 6th fret on the D. Similar sort of phrasing for the next kind of phrase. So I'm starting on the D string this time, going 8 and 6 to the A string on the 8, back up to the 6 on the D, slide up from the 8 to the 9, 8 to the 10, and land on that G string on the 8. So you get this. Put those two little licks together, you get this. Then we have a curious little lick. I kind of played it, when I played it to you for the first time, I played it quite clean. I went. But he does more than that. He's kind of holding these two notes, and he's kind of hitting two notes at the same time, kind of this sort of thing. So it's a bit more, I kind of preferred it playing it clean, but basically the premise is, it's this, holding those two notes on the G string, the G8 and the B9, and you want to come off from the 10 to the 10 to the 8 on the G string, and then while you're still holding that note, which is on the B string, you want to come off from the 11 to the 10, so you get this sort of sound. And then it's your choice really. The note bends up from an 11 to the 13. But there's another note, kind of rogue note, that it sounds like he's holding two notes together and bending them at the same time. And I suspect it's this kind of shape. He's holding that G10 as well, bending that up. So it's at your discretion. I kind of prefer it. It's more bluesy if it's just clean. So the whole phrase one more time. So now we're building up to a climax of the song. It does this. There's a new little section that you haven't heard before. It does this. So the first half you know, it's that it's starting from the B flat to the C sharp, to the D sharp. Then we're kind of going from the F upwards. So we've moved down to the E and the A string. We start on the first fret holding the E1 and the A3. Move that up to the G position, which is on the 3rd fret. Move up to the 4th fret, to the 6th fret. And then we get our little diminished kind of sound, little diminished riff happening. So the last little chord sequence is back to what we've done earlier. It's our chunky chord starting on the F minor. Goes like this. So it's a similar sort of, same sort of chord sequence, no new chord sequence there. Don't forget to superimpose if you can with a friend or the extra little guitar part that does the little kind of lead part, does this. You hear that kick in on the last little chord sequence, the last little descending chord sequence. But that's all the components to the song. It's one of their earlier songs, and the strange thing is it doesn't sound like Steve Tyler singing to me, but it is him, and it just shows how versatile his voice is. But that's the song. Have fun with that one.